Right, now this will tell us. And that's pretty conclusive. Still going. Close. I think he got it down.
How strong is he?
Welcome back to the Pick and Go podcast, your one-stop shop for all things rugby. And as you can see, I'm in studio by myself today. Unfortunately, Pitty's away, coaching his daughter's rugby league team, netball team. He's helping out with the family anyway. So what do we do instead? Well, we look down the bottom of the barrel and we try and find someone who can replace. He can't be replaced. But
he shouldn't talk to you about it, Searle. He shouldn't be talking about you like that.
I know.
I mean, that's just rude.
It's rough because I'm on here every week too, so obviously the barrel, she's pretty shallow.
Well, the cat's out of the bag. Yeah. we're heading north to both of our participants today. First of all, Jeff Goldie Wilson. Jeff, welcome along again. Thanks very much for joining us.
I would like to say superstar, but I wouldn't say that's the case at all. But mind you, I will remind you, the last time I was on, I did actually pick Otago to beat Auckland. The last time I was on the Pick Go podcast, if you do remember that.
Oh, I've got it here on the run sheet. I'm just having a look. In fact, the last time you were here, you had All Blacks 13 and over, South Africa 13 and over, and Wellington head to head, the whole hundy on at $4.12. And that came in, and that was added to Searle's balance, as seen as you were in full Searle.
Was I never coming back? Was like I was just off the face of the earth? I mean,
we thought it was a farewell, mate. So they gifted it to me to try and get me out of the red. So I appreciate it.
No problems. Well, you won't like what I've got today.
Well, this one's going on Pitty's account, so I hope you got something good. Yep. Searle, welcome along once again. In fact, I'm guessing that both of you guys are north of the bridge?
Yeah, North Shore, the beautiful North Shore, mate. Unfortunately, Westlake copped a loss on the weekend, so I'm still licking my wounds up against a very impressive Kelston side. So looking forward to seeing how that top four goes in the national competition as well, because it looks pretty stacked. There's 4 quality sides there, so I'm keen to see who comes away with that one. But yeah, sun's shining on the shore as it is every day, mate. It never rains here.
Yeah, I think it's Palmy North boys who are our representatives. So
I think Fielding knocked them over, didn't they?
Oh, did they? Oh no,
yes.
That's right. Big upset.
Yeah. By hearing Nelson College, though, right? It's the team to beat.
Yeah, them and Hamilton boys, I think. Yeah. And they actually play each other, I think.
Yeah, I think. A significant. It's always an interesting part of the year, right? Because you never know, particularly for Westlake. They've had a great couple of years, the last couple of years, but it wasn't to be on the weekend. But there's some serious talent around. There is.
Yeah.
Okay, so much for the run sheet. We're off and gone again.
Well, that's your responsibility. You're actually in charge. You know that, right?
Sorry, Paulie. That was my fault.
There's a lack of leadership here, and I wonder if there's a lack of leadership in some of the teams that are going around at the moment.
Ooh.
But, well, that brings us to our first question. What happens first? Auckland get their first win in the NPC, or Wellington pick up their first loss in the NPC? But we'll head to you first, Goldie.
Auckland will win over North Harbour this weekend. At Wellington, certainly. I don't think they'll. I think they'll. Well, I mean, this is it. Pretty much this season is on the line this weekend. I did go and watch. I was working on the North Harbour game last weekend against Counties. Great game of football when both teams recognised the most talented people on the teams were the 2 fullbacks. So they threw it around. It was a beautiful afternoon, and they certainly showed how dangerous they were, North Harbour. But I mean, if you're Auckland, you've got to get it right once, right? Like and they were so disappointing against Waikato. And look, their other 3 games they were there or thereabouts. But this is, I mean, they've had it tough. We spoke to Angus Tataval on the breakdown on Sunday. He was on the show, and he was just saying, look, they were having to rely on some really young talent. But I think that they will get their first win. They're at home. I mean, there'll be maybe 750 people at Eden Park. It'll look good. It'll be packed. and maybe 500 of those will be North Harbour fans. But I think I just get a sense, and Wellington I don't think will lose to Southland. Wellington look good. You know, they look as good as they did last year for the majority of their season. They've got a stacked side. That's the way I'm seeing it. I think it'll happen this weekend. I think 2:05, they both games kick off, but I think we'll see those results.
Searle, are you thinking along the same lines as Goldie here? Surely Harbour. Continue on.
Head and heart, son. Think about it. Head and heart.
Well, if you've heard my betting tips, you'd know I go with my heart over my head every week. So I'm going to do that again.
You've got my money.
Yeah, and you're the one that saved me, mate. I'm going to go with my heart again. I think Harbour beat Auckland, even though we gave Counties their first win. We're not going to go back-to-back weeks and give Auckland their first. Wellington will beat Southland, but then I think Wellington will lose to the Golden O next Wednesday night down at the Sistema Lunchbox and pick up their first loss. So I see Wellington losing a game first next Wednesday against Otago.
Well, that's their Storm week, and I think if Tasman take the shield off Hawke's Bay this week, Wellington get a challenge against Tasman the next week. So if they're looking ahead, they may be resting a few players against Otago. So it's not out of the realms of possibility. But can a team start 0-5 and still make the playoffs?
You've got to win 5 games. It was 5 games filled the 8th spot last year, and they picked up a couple of bonus points already along the way, so that they could make it. I think and it could end up coming down to bonus points, but their run homes, it's not ridiculously tough, but it's actually more about momentum, and they're actually playing better rugby. Auckland just haven't been playing well. I think they've struggled with some guys had a massive season. Anyone who's played Super Rugby in their groups had a massive season. Played a huge number of minutes. Yes, they won a title, but the way they went about winning that title takes its toll. And they've sort of tried to play a little bit like that without some of the major cattle. The cattle's playing for the All Blacks, So, and once Harry Plummer come out of the mix, all of a sudden they lost their general. And I think that's really affected. That's why I think Auckland's struggling. But they need a couple of the young guys to step up. And, if they throw the ball around a little bit more, look, Zahn Sullivan was rusty last weekend. First came back for a while. He'll be better. He'll need to be. But, look, I just hope they start throwing the ball around because I'm enjoying watching the teams that are prepared to play, and we've seen some really good action. The ones that are just one up, runner, one pass runner, they haven't been fun to watch. So Wellington have got some versatility. They've got some guys that want to play as well. Got plenty of talent. So, Southland Northland game was really fun to watch. Teams having a crack. That's what the NPC is supposed to be about. Use your skill sets, right? So we'll see what happens. But the Hawke's Bay Tasman game. Yeah, it's interesting. You're thinking Tasman there. Don't get ahead of yourselves. Don't start thinking. You've been listening to Andrew Mulligan, who's obviously diehard Wellington. He's already been plotting his navigation path to how they get the shield. I'm not sure about that. We'll wait and see.
He's always been a very astute judge, as our yeah. Look, Searle, Goldie mentioned Zahn Sullivan, and he mentioned the 2 fullbacks in the Harbour Counties game. So is there a case to be made for another fullback to force his way into the All Blacks? Is there someone that we can pinpoint that might be able to force their way into an All Black squad?
I don't think anyone's going to force their way in just because the amount of options they have there. Already you've got arguably the world's best fullback potentially playing on the wing and Will Jordan. So I think if anyone deserves a crack in the 15 jersey next, then it's probably him. But I was so impressed with Etienne Nanai-Satoro on the weekend, and his Super Rugby campaign was massive. For me, he ticks every box. He's got that lightning footwork, but his kicking game, his little subtleties, I really like how involved he is. Like for someone who had such a long layoff with a knee injury, every time there was a half break, he's got a great sense about when an opportunity could present himself, and he always puts himself around the ball, and that's what the best players do, like what Will Jordan does basically every week. So I think he's jumped a lot of people in the New Zealand rugby pecking order, and I would love to see him get an opportunity over the next couple years, Because for me, he could be that great number 23. He can cover your wing. Probably wouldn't look out of place in the midfield if you had a massive amount of injuries too. And then he's just showed on the weekend he's a classy fullback.
What's interesting about this discussion is Amoni Nala was playing at centre for Bay of Plenty. I'm wondering if Amoni Nalawa's worked out that there are no spots on the wing. There's no. I mean, that's the hard part right now. Is if you think about how many players we have to fill numbers 11, 14, and 15. Sevu Reece played a couple of fantastic Test matches. Can't get a run. Mark Talia, who was arguably it was the breakout player of the world breakout player of the year a couple of years ago, he can't get a run. Caleb Clark is back to his very best. I'm still not seeing a confident Will Jordan yet. I'm not seeing a guy who's playing with a huge amount of confidence, so I can't see him going to fullback. But about Nanai Saturo, look, he's been consistent for 2 or 3 years now. I feel for him because it's in any other country, he's in that conversation of not just being in the squad, he's getting a starting opportunity, And I was with you. He looked a class above, and Stevenson was not far behind him, to be fair. The way that they can create, the way that they recognise where the space is, and County's worked out that they're struggling. Let's just try and involve our very best players as often as we possibly can. And the other players were connected to him, whether it was a chip kick for him, whether they were looking for him on an inside ball. And he was just there. He's a right place, right time sort of player. He's got a good kicking game. He's certainly not. He's very, very good defensively when he's on the wing. Look, that was a really impressive 60 minutes. I mean, they desperately needed him. Unfortunately for him at this time of the year, quite often the NPC doesn't really become a selection talking point for the All Blacks. All the form is from what they've seen in Super Rugby. And like I say, when you've got Ruben Love still floating around, hasn't had an opportunity. You've got Stephen Petafeta covering fullback, the other wings in good form. Yeah, he's the one, like Sean Stevenson, who are not out in the wilderness, but they're sitting in the background right now and who are, I think, won't get an opportunity probably in 2024 unless there's some significant injury.
Righty-ho. Let's have a look back at the first test between the Springboks and the All Blacks. I guess, well, we can talk about the officiating. I guess, first of all, was double banking a thing when you were playing, Jeff?
What do you mean by double banking?
So this is the thing where usually from a 5 meter line out, bang, they throw it in, and then one of the, I guess, one of the guys who holds the jumper then comes round in front of him and gives him a barrier between the opposition, and then they drive it over. So I think the South Africans were complaining about Cody Taylor's first try.
Oh, look, the game of rugby is complex. It's amazing how this rule or that law you're talking about and that front blocker you're talking about, you don't call it for 60 minutes of a game and then all of a sudden you call it. We recognise that it's happened. It's probably happened 5 other times in a line out of a different part of the field. We all of a sudden see off a kickoff every so often where a lifting prop gets it slightly wrong and he just turns his back and shields the player with the ball. And so you're only going to bring up those conversations when you've got away with something else at the other end of the field. And these, to me, you can, if you dig down deep enough and you go and look for reasons to find a penalty or an obstruction, you'll find something. It's just a game of rugby. Like it swings and roundabouts. We had our opportunities. Look, we can complain about the fact they missed what was clearly a knock on. And I love radio silence in World Rugby. They are the best organisation in the world at not explaining when they've made a decision. Because I actually don't have an issue if they come out and explain it, and that's what their belief in, and because you have to have that, but they're not even prepared to tell us what their process was, because they have a process. There's a whole raft of decisions they go through before they get to an outcome. That's what they've had to decide, and if they got it wrong, we won't hear from them. If they think they've got it right, we probably still won't hear from them because they don't want to keep the conversation going. Can't change the score. Look, we're up by 10 points. Like I say, you can look about details. You look about a whole lot of little things. You could almost argue if you look at it, Geordie Barrett on his intercept try, he left early. He was inside the 10, by probably half a metre. Oh, yeah, you could go back to that. So you've got to be really careful. You start looking at individual, if there's a whole lot of things and clear and obvious is that you go, well, you've missed an obvious clear forward pass. I've seen that before. that knock-on frustrates a lot of us, but ultimately 10-point lead in a test match with, 18 minutes to go, you turn down 3 points. This is on the All Blacks. This is on their ability to finish a test match. Nothing more, nothing less. We weren't good enough for 80 minutes.
Shirley, we only have to go back to the World Cup final where I think the video ref went back 4 or 5 phases to find a knock-on that then disallowed an All Blacks try. Perhaps there's a role for Graham Annesley in the World Rugby if Jeff is to get his way and we get a sort of a Monday morning explanation on some of the more contentious decisions by the officials. But if you have a look at the game overall, the All Blacks did enough to win, being up 10 points with 15 minutes to go. And they just couldn't close it out, which is what we're used to seeing from All Black sides.
Yeah, on that first point with Graham Annesley, I'm not sure he does a good job in the NRL either, so I think he can stay away. Hopefully there's a middle ground there. I agree with Jeff. I'm happy to live with a referee making the wrong decision, but when a TMO, that we've seen them so involved over the last few years, the ref can get it wrong, the TMO can't, and they don't really have an excuse for getting it wrong. But hey, it is what it is, and we had opportunities to win that game. That last 15 minutes, we really were our own worst enemy. I think the penalty count, 14-5, you're not going to beat the number 1 ranked side in the world in South Africa with that level of discipline and that level of disparity between the penalty count. I thought we just made some rookie errors in that last stretch. Our exits weren't effective, carrying the ball back into the 22 and then kicking it out on the full. That's schoolboy errors from world-class players. So I'm not sure if it was pressure, the environment, fatigue from playing at altitude. All those things probably came in to factor. But yeah, full credit to South Africa. We've spoken so much about the impact of that bench that they have. And a lot of people like to poo-poo it and say that our bench is just as good. But I think they really dominated us in that aspect late in the game. I think the possession was 67 to 33% in that last 10 minutes. They just dominated it and shut it out like good teams do. So well done to South Africa. At the same time, I thought the All Blacks played 65 minutes of really good footy, and I think there were plenty of positives to come from that game. I love the way we were attacking. I thought our backline in particular looked really silky at times. So yeah, there's some positives in there. You just want to see the full 80 minutes, but I thought our starting 15 in particular looked really good. I was impressed.
Goldie, Searle mentioned the atmosphere and pressure. You would have played it, Joe. In fact, did you play in the first test between the All Blacks and South Africa when they were, I guess,
92? No, thankfully I didn't. No, I didn't. But JK was still around then. He scored a try in that game. I remember watching that game. There's a reason, when there are big moments in test matches, when you see the camera shaking, that's the stadium shaking. That's the vibration of sound and energy, and when things are happening, that's what you get constantly at Ellis Park. That is, you're thinking to yourself, is someone bumping the cameraman? No. That's the raw wave of electricity when something is happening or moments in games. It's one of, and a lot of stadiums have that, but I think that in particular, that one in South Africa, Ellis Park, it's almost like it has its own vibration, and it's constant. The noise is constant. It never stops through the course of the 80 minutes, and it's a unique place to have to go and play. And I've won there, I've lost there. You've got to prepare yourself mentally for it, and it's not just for the 80 minutes. Quite often, it's preparing yourself for what's going to happen in the lead up when you arrive to the ground, all of that. There is a lot of anticipation. They won't have to deal with the same type of anticipation this weekend down in Cape Town because it's a different crowd. It's a different atmosphere. It'll still be intense. But in some ways, for the Springboks, a little bit of element of pressure is off because they've sort of taken care of business in the first test match. They've sort of got control of the rugby championship. It's all about a mindset about what Rassie Erasmus wants to do for this next test. But I'm not... people have talked about some of the things that we did really well. If you go back and look at the game, we kicked the ball 28 times. 28 times, I'm not talking in total, 28 times to try and get the ball back as a contestable. So we got it back twice. So 28 times we went to the air, chip kicks, grubber kicks, whatever we're trying to get, we only recovered it twice out of 28 times. And I'm not sure for us, you talked about some of those skills. Well, it was a little bit tidy in terms of our passing and running onto the ball and using some space, using our footwork. That's the one thing that, Damian McKenzie brings. I don't think we went to it enough. We didn't trust ourselves enough not to make mistakes. We bailed out and went to a kicking game or a chip kick when we've actually got to create one-on-one opportunities. And when there are guys who are good enough with it, with ball in hand, and we're seeing at the moment Caleb Clark can beat the first tackler every time. We know Damian McKenzie can do that. I just feel as though, the 6-2 split stuff, I'm getting more and more frustrated. I don't understand why we don't do it when we can, because we've got versatility in our back line. I don't need a wing on the bench. I don't understand it. Wings they're a luxury to have. Imagine if we'd been in a situation on the weekend where, I know Patrick Tuipulotu wasn't available, but Josh Lord's on the bench and we can move Scott Barrett to blindside flanker to finish the game. Knowing his engine, his size, his experience, anything that we could have added. I think for me, I'm just saying this is specifically against what we're going to face. Having that extra size and physicality at the back end, last 20 of the game, that's where we're falling down. And we should have known what was coming, and we couldn't counter it. And then the discipline from, a couple of key plays, but, it's hard on Ofa Taungawhasi. It really is. But that yellow card ultimately cost us the test match because it's hard to beat them with 8 men, hold them with 8 men. When you've only got 7, pretty bloody tough.
Shirley, if you look back at it, there were some good performances from players on both sides. Who were who stood out for you for South Africa and for the All Blacks?
Look, I'm mainly just focused on the All Blacks, to be completely honest. I thought Cody Taylor was really good. I was impressed with our work at set piece, like 100% on our scrums, 93% on line out against a big South African pack. I'll take that. And I think Cody Taylor's form so far in the All Black jersey this year has been a little bit mixed. So I thought that was a great performance from him. I thought Tupou Vai was outstanding. He really relished that physical aspect. Our loose forwards were great. Sam Cane, 16 tackles. It's like he never had a break at all. Like, to be able to come back in after one trot in NPC level and have a performance like that is just a testament to his quality. And then I think Geordie and Caleb Clark were the picks of the backs for me. Geordie was massive. I think he had the second highest amount of carries in that game, one behind Peter Steph du Toit. So yeah, he was a bit of a battering ram for us. And then Caleb Clark, like Jeff touched on before, I didn't have him in my starting 15 at all prior to the first test this year, and he has now become one of the most lethal attacking weapons in our side. And he always had that potential, didn't he? I remember that first year he wore the black jersey, everyone was giving him massive comparisons straight away, and that's always a dangerous thing to do. But when he is confident, he looks comfortable, he looks happy, he's come off a massive Super Rugby season, and he's played his way into demanding that starting spot, and it's pushed guys like Mark Talia and that out of the starting 15, which is a testament right there to his form. So yeah, there were certainly at least 5 or 6 guys that I thought really put their hand up in that starting side in particular. It was just that bench that we've had some great impact from over the last few weeks, but we got outdone massively there in that area, I thought.
Jeff, if you look at it from a South African point of view, obviously the forward pack was very, very good. Peter Steph du Toit, Sia Khaleesi, but Sasha Feinberg in the 10 jersey, Efalele Fassi outside of the yellow card. Cheslin Colby must be weight for weight, one of the best players going around at the moment.
Look, this might sound surprising, but they didn't play very well. Like they made a lot of errors, and to me, I thought their loose forward trio was a bit average. I thought Dixon he's only played 3 test matches, I think, and I don't think he had a big impact on the game. Steph du Toit, he actually, I think, hides, and when they got better when Etzebeth came on for the blood bin. Yeah, they got better and then Steph du Toit goes to flanker. They got better. Visa didn't carry very well. He was blowing after about 20 odd minutes. And if you watch Sia Khaleesi's impacts on the game, sometimes he's inspirational for them. But he to me didn't do a lot. didn't do a lot in terms of impact in the game. And they made a number of errors. Like they tried a few offloads that didn't go to hand and gave us opportunities. They'll be disappointed with the way that they played. I think behind the scenes, they'll be thrilled with this win because they know they had to go back to get a result. They went away from the things they'd actually done for most of this season to go and get a result. They've been using the ball a little bit more where they went, that hasn't been working. We're going to have to knuckle it down again and go back to what we can dominate at. So I actually think, look, Feinberg Mongazulu was really good. Fussy was good other than his yellow card. But ultimately, I think as a group, the one thing they got caught out with was their bench because, the 6-2 split ended up hurting them. They had to shuffle once they lost Odense. All of a sudden, Pollard come on at 12. Everyone moved out one. The try they scored down, Caleb Clark scored down the left edge. Creel just got his defensive lines horrifically wrong. Chased in so far he could never get back out. And that was one of those dangers because they'd already made the substitution at halfback. So Williams is one of those hybrid players who can cover some positions. So all of a sudden they were banked into a corner. They did have an option with Quagga Smith because he is a genuine hybrid player. He can play in the backs or in the forwards. He's such a tough bugger and athletic enough. But I think overall they'll look at it and go, you know what, we can be a lot better, the Springboks. They'll know that, mate. So that's why I think it's a big ask for the All Blacks. Depending on health-wise, if they get a couple of guys back, the Springboks, they were better when Williams came on at halfback. If Faf de Klerk, I'm not sure how long he's out for. If he's available again, I don't know the details of his injury, but all of a sudden you'll have two halfbacks which are a bit more creative than Reinach. Reinach's a little bit one-dimensional. But so for me, I look at the Springboks and go, they'll be thrilled with a win, but also realistic that they can play better.
Righty-ho, we head down to Cape Town for the second test this weekend. Searle, what sort of changes, personnel-wise, if any, would you like to see from the All Blacks for that second test against South Africa?
I can't see a lot of it, to be honest. I think they're going to trot out basically the same side. I guess maybe you could go with that 6-2 split on the bench, like what Jeff mentioned, because we do have the depth there to be able to pull that off. But I think we see the same starting 15, health dependent, and then maybe possibly a few tweaks on the bench. But I think these guys get another opportunity to right the wrongs. It'll be interesting to see if that's the way they go. One thing that does frustrate me is that the team gets named on a Thursday. I would love to see teams named on a Wednesday or even on a Tuesday, like what the Springboks do. And we saw Rassi, that team he names isn't always the team that actually trots out there, and he can make a couple late changes. But I'd love to see a team naming Wednesday in Test rugby because these guys find out on the Monday if they're playing, and that quite often the team then gets leaked. People get frustrated that the team's been leaked, but yeah, why we have to leave it so late? I think it kills the build-up personally because you miss touching on so many talking points and big selection debates and things like that. But it's a bit off topic. I think the team will be very similar to the one we saw on the weekend.
Goldie, for you, you mentioned you wouldn't mind seeing a 6-2 split on the bench for the All Blacks, and you would think with the players that they have, with the likes of Bodie in the 15 jersey, Will Jordan in the 14, Mackenzie at 10, if someone was to go down at 10, you could juggle things around and only have like a halfback and
Anton Leonard-Brown.
A midfielder.
You just need ALB. But Anton Leonard-Brown covers everything. I mean, he covers.
Any changes for you?
No, because I don't think we've got any. The only thing, and I don't know the status, and this is the hard thing. Dalton Papali'i's thumb injury, right? He would have been nice to have on the bench for this sort of game. At least he's been in big games and big moments. As much as Sammy Penny's, he's got a big future in the game. I don't know how ready he was for this moment. In that moment, and the other thing I went and looked back is there's a number of these guys actually not just played very few All Black games. There's a number of these players that played very few Super Rugby games. Like I think he's in the mid-20s, Sammy Penny thing now. That's not a lot of rugby I would say a step further down than we've ever had in Super Rugby compared to international game, compared to playing the Springboks in Ellis Park. Seriously, how can you be prepared for that if you're him. Asafa Amua is the same. Like, yeah, he's got I think he's got 60 games of Super Rugby, but how many of those? Probably 40 of them are off the bench. He was competing for a starting spot. So there's a lot of guys who don't have not just huge All Black experience, they just don't have big moment and Super Rugby experience for a long number of years. And you need consistency to make the right decisions. You need game time under your belt. So, that's where Dalton, to me, if this thumb injury thing, which if he wasn't available last week due to a thumb injury, I'm finding it hard to believe he'll be available this week. And if he is, how do you trust what was talked about last week? Going, well, because there were mixed messages about a selection anyway, So I just don't see Jacobson, I think, still carrying a bit of a niggle by the sounds of things. So what are our options? Are you going to bring in Noah Hotham for Cortez Ratima? Well, I don't know about anybody else, but this is going off topic, but there's a guy playing for Tasman who I really would have liked to have come off the bench in this game because knowing how tight, and once again, how big are moments. Now, people might say, well, that's not going forward. That's not moving, advancing guys, but also winning is advancing the team. Tasting that type of success will bring a whole lot of belief. And so this is a really important test match for the All Blacks. This is, you talk about their future, you talk about, guys having to learn really quickly, and back up, because I can't see any changes you can make. You're not going to start a young halfback, are you? I mean, you're not going to do that. I say this about TJ Perenara. He's got to get it under control. When you're a leader, passion's one thing, but it has to be directed in the right area. And that cost us significantly. We're up 7-0, right part of the field. We would have gone to a line-out. We could have scored again. 14-0 is a significantly different situation. And he's got to stop pleading for penalties and keep playing. Let the referee do his job. Clear the ball. Just get it off the ground and move. We're fighting. Yep, the guy's in the way. If the guy's in the way, the referee will take care of it. But if we want to play rugby and score points, you talked about our set piece. Yep, it's great. I don't think that being a competitive advantage. So trying to get penalties from a guy half lying in the back of our ruck every time there's a ruck, it's just a waste of the possession. And we've got to play, And so to me, he's got to decide. Don't be good against teams that you're thrashing. Be really good against the teams where it's really tight, And TJ, that to me is the challenge for him. He's got to be better than that because we need him to be better. He needs to create for players around him, and he get his ball off the ground. He needs to shift it away, to unleash what is, I think, a dangerous backline.
Shirley, Jeff just mentioned there the sort of lack of experience of a number of the All Blacks in Super Rugby. Doubling down on that, a lot of them have very little Super Rugby experience in South Africa now that the African teams aren't in Super Rugby. Is that another thing that's counting against it? I guess if you play in South Africa for a Super Rugby team, does that then prepare you for playing the Springboks in South Africa?
Test rugby is certainly another step up, isn't it? And, what they faced on the weekend, that environment, like Jeff said, they won't face that quite to that level again this weekend. But I think I heard Razor say 7 of the travelling squad had never played in South Africa. So straight away, that's a crazy environment to have to go into in your first trip. It really was a baptism of fire for some of these guys. So I think you might see a few guys look a little bit more comfortable this weekend. It's probably a massive shock to the system, but at least now they get a taste of it at what could be the craziest atmosphere that they'll play in for a very long time. So, yeah, Test rugby is always a big step up from Super Rugby, so we're all told, and taking on South Africa at Ellis Park, that's probably the biggest step up you can have. But, yeah, I think it's, again, just another testament to how much we miss South Africa at times in Super Rugby because, yeah, that there's an art to touring, isn't there? Like, that can play a massive part in getting results. And a lot of these guys have never experienced life on the road for long periods.
I just want to mention, so take that in mind. They've got an island at Aviva Stadium. They've got France at Stade de France, and then they've got England at Twickenham. Right? Get used to it, guys. There's 3 stadiums that will be. I know from experience the fact that there's going to heap a whole lot of pressure on this All Black team. So, in terms of being the great benefit of that game last weekend was that now that they've got it's probably as tough as it's ever going to get, and our greatest rivalry. But there are 3 other teams at the end of the year in 3 stadiums which are going to be heaving, with home fans who are going to try and do the same thing to you. So in terms of experience, it's a nice thing for a lot of these things, a really important thing for a lot of these guys to have finally have gone through it, because it's probably, like I say, it's probably not going to be as tough as that again, but some places not far off it.
Did you ever tour properly, Goldie? And I mean, like,
what do you mean tour properly?
Midweek games against provincial.
Shots fired.
Mate,
Shots fired.
1993, mate. 1993, my first tour. This is why we go behind time. You keep asking tours questions like this. This is why they're going to shut you down. I mean, this is why they're going to shut you down. 1993 was my first tour. Was to Scotland and England, and it was huge. And we played the Barbarians as well at Cardiff Arms at the end of before they knocked Cardiff Arms down, the old Cardiff Arms.
Right.
So I think it was an 11 game tour. I played 10 games, and I was on the midweek games. I think in one of those was off the bench. So I played every game. I think it was 11. Every game through the course of that other than one, they gave me one game off, a midweek game. So I mean, touring's a lot of fun, and I know they're bringing back to a tour of South Africa where there's going to be some midweek games. But that was over a course of about 5 weeks. I'm not sure they'll be as long as that again. But I mean they pose a different challenge. You got a big group. So it's one of the best things about it, and being in South Africa, that's probably one of the nice things about, in some ways, what they've done with the Rugby Championship, where you're somewhere for at least for a couple of weeks. Because before we just kept sort of alternating and travelling from one to the next. Normally, they used to go from South Africa and they now go to Argentina, right? They do the loop and then they come back, or you start in Argentina and loop through to South Africa and come back, and everything was home and away. So being able to settle into South Africa, for a lot of these guys, if it is their first tour, rather than now getting on a plane and leaving, they've got they'll get down to Cape Town, they'll get down to sea level, and they'll have another chance to experience and get a bit better for it, So, but they've got to get used to it, because are we touring there in 2 years' time? Is that the plan? Is it? I think that's what it is for the All Blacks. I think they've announced that we're going to South Africa for a 3-match tour. So there'll be tour matches in that. It'll be more like a traditional Lions tour where there's a few games in midweek. What
about conversely, when the Springboks tour? Did you ever play for Otago against the Springboks when they?
Yep, 94.
If you're a provincial team and you beat the Springboks, you get to put the head up on the club rooms.
Yeah, there's actually a reunion this year. Unfortunately, I can't make it down to Dunedin of the team in 94 that we beat the Springboks. Kara's book was virtually underwater. It had bucketed down for like 2 days, and it was incredible scenes. But yep, we've got the Springbok head, and it's a unique challenge. It's the last time I think they've done a full tour here, but it was different, right? Because we had all of our All Blacks playing. It was a fully fledged. What we've noticed with the Lions, they play the New Zealand Māori All Blacks, and then they play did they play one of the provincial teams as well? No, super teams, right? They played a super team.
They played it, yeah.
They played a super team, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, that Carisbrook game was unbelievable. I remember because I was the goal kicker, and in those days we didn't use tees. It was still the old day of the sand. I had to have a bucket. It was like, as I was putting this massive bucket would come out, and then the water would wash half it away. Stephen Bassett got charged down in the first, I'd say, 2 minutes of the game. The Springboks scored, and they never got near us again, and we ended up winning by about 12 or 13. It was unbelievable scenes, so much fun, but it was cool. It was awesome. So I look forward to seeing that again. That's special for any team that gets to play against an international side.
Right, let's stick with the NPC. And there were a number of upsets last week. I know Shirley won't want me to mention one of them, but Southland travelled up to the top of the country, beat the Taniwha. Counties Manukau in a high-scoring, entertaining match, knocked over North Harbour. Waikato, who opened up at around $2.90 at home, beat Auckland by 13 or more. Canterbury, that game was over by half-time. Wellington were all over Canterbury. And Manawatu got out to a bit of a start against Hawke's Bay, couldn't hold on in the end. But what was the biggest, Searle, what was the biggest upset for you, I guess, last weekend?
Yeah, there were two for me. You touched on one, Counties getting the win, just because I thought Harbour would be too strong at home. And then it probably wasn't the biggest upset, but the way Waikato beat Auckland, I think 32 points to 7 at halftime. The game was pretty much done. Auckland came out and scored a couple tries after halftime, but they were never going to win that game in that second half. So I think I saw this is their longest losing streak in 92 years or something like that. I saw the headline. As a Harbour fan, I love to see that, especially with the Battle of the Bridge pending this week. But yeah, well done to Waikato. I thought they played some good footy. This is what we love about NPC, right? Only 3 undefeated teams in the competition. It's so tight. Anyone can beat anyone on their day. That Northland Southland result started my week off horribly for my Maltese. Unfortunately, I lost about 4 of them on opening night, so that was disappointing to see. But yeah, this is why we love the NPC. Sides capable of beating anyone on their day, and teams are doing it this year. It's a close competition.
Jeff, the biggest upset for you over the weekend?
I suppose in terms of an upset, you'd have to go Counties winning. I mean, Counties just hadn't really shown a lot. But what it does for me is it shows the value of getting a significantly and a world-class type player, or a player with vast amount of experience to inspire you, and you get the right conditions to play, and maybe a shift from Counties about the way they're trying to play, because they basically were playing wide on everything. It was like, well, we've tried to go through the middle for the first 4 rounds of the season. Okay, so 5th game, let's just start throwing it around, and all of a sudden we started to see some of the dangers they had, not just with Eteni Nano Satura, but other players in and around them, and particularly on their wings. So to me, I think that was a big upset. It was, because there was form told us, and we sort of saw from North Harbour there's been glimpses. We know they weren't far away. We thought, look, they've got lots of bonus points because they've been tight games, for Counties to come over the top of them. And they got out to a good lead, and to then actually win it in the end of the death, I think was pretty impressive. So what that means in the course of this season, I'm not sure it means a lot, but it actually means a lot to North Harbour, because now it puts a little bit more pressure on this game against Auckland, to then head, if you don't get this game, you're 1-4, and Auckland's 1-4, and then the margins. Look, so there's some teams who are going to be chasing the 7 and 8 spots, right? That's ultimately what they'll be chasing, and that's probably the best thing about this competition is, like you say, there's the gap at the bottom is not a lot. It doesn't take much. You get a couple of wins, and all of a sudden you're in the conversation for making that final spot. Look, Canterbury are halfway through their campaign, and they're at 2-3. They've only got 5 games left, so they've got some work to do. But if you look at their squad, they don't have the experience and depth in a lot of key positions. And I look at them and go, they need to start playing a little bit more. You've got some ability on the outsides, and they're just not using it. Shea Fihaki's had a really good season of Super Rugby, but they're just not playing with the accuracy and width that they need to play. Love watching Hawke's Bay play. But I think, to me, that was the biggest upset. Waikato, you put an old head sometimes. God, he can still weave some magic, Aaron Cruden, can't he? Even though it's at half pace these days, But even his half pace doesn't stop the skill and the control and the understanding. And they've got a coach on field, Waikato, as they're going through. And so I see them sort of being a bit of a sleeper in this competition.
Searle, the biggest surprise package so far in the season for you in the NPC? For mine, it's Hawke's Bay. They're 5 from 5. They've picked up bonus points along the way as well. They've got the Ranfurly Shield to look after. I've just been impressed with the way that their system has enabled them to just continue to roll on. And I expected them to drop a game or two at the stage of the season, just because maybe the pressure of having the Shield, it seems like the pressure of having the Shield has actually worked in their favour, and it's helped them to go unbeaten so far. But for you, the biggest surprise package so far?
Yeah, I've been impressed with Hawke's Bay too, and they haven't exactly been full strength either. They're still missing a couple quality players, particularly in that forward pack. So they've done well. In saying that, though, they do have Tasman, Taranaki,
Yeah.
Auckland, all still to
Yeah.
come. So they've got a really tough run home. And you mentioned defending the Shield this weekend. That's one of three big challenges remaining for them, potentially, if they can get the job done. So it's not all easy for them. Southland, like Jeff mentioned, I wanted to shout them out. I didn't have them in the 8 ahead of teams like Canterbury and Auckland at this stage of the season. For so long, we've become used to that Northland Southland game between being a battle between the bottom of the table, but that they've shown that they've got some talent down there. I think they've recruited really well. They picked up a couple guys from Auckland Club Rugby and things like that. Really smart pickups from guys that aren't being used in other franchises, but were clearly good enough to play at this level. And they've formed a really nice team. And they got a cool, passionate fan base too. So I love seeing Southland in the 8 there. I'm not sure if they can hold on to it for the rest of the season, but I've been impressed with them. And also Otago, a team that I put a line through at the start once they lost their first game to Southland. Why they haven't exactly been getting the wins every week, I think they've got some real talent in there, and they're a team that if you play them at home in particular, they're capable of pulling off some big wins.
And their draw helps. Their draw helps. I mean, it's a big one against Canterbury, but they've also, I mean, Otago, I've got Counties Manukau, they've got Manawatu, and they've got Northland as well. So there's games that they should be able to target and look at and go, we can win those games. But that's just, in saying that, Otago they've got a Super Rugby base in that group, and a lot of young guys who are Super Rugby players. So I don't see many excuses for them. My former team is that they've got guys who need this valuable time, and they should be performing at this. If you're a Super Rugby player, you should be very good at NPC level. And there's a lot of these guys now, I think it's time for them to step up. They have to be consistent because there's no reason. They're getting the benefit of a full professional environment, getting a taste of Super Rugby. A lot of them aren't playing huge minutes, but they should be well prepared and looking as highly motivated, going, you know what, this is us to make our mark. I've just reinforced the Hawke's Bay thing. They need to hold on to the Shield because I think that's a big part of their success. With that run home you talked about, if you drop that and all of a sudden you just lose a couple of games against some strong teams and you're not defending that, there's that level of passion, and there's some good guys in there who are doing a really good job for them up front, but I think that's a big part of their success to date. That run home's tough, and if you get through this weekend, I think for me, if they can get through this weekend over Tasman, I think it's a huge result for them. That would be massive in the context of their season.
Well, why don't we have a look at that Ranfurly Shield challenge then, Hawke's Bay, Tasman. And as we speak on a Tuesday morning, teams haven't been named. But look, I'm going to throw it out. I'm going to say they're going to put their strongest teams out there, both Hawke's Bay and Tasman. The bookies at the moment have Hawke's Bay as a $2.25 outsider at home, Tasman $1.60, who have been very impressive as well, and one of the other unbeaten teams in the competition. Searle, can you make a case for Tasman taking the Shield south?
Absolutely. I think overall they've been the most impressive side for me throughout the NPC so far. They've scored 158 points in 4 games, averaging about 40 per game. And then defensively, apart from their first matchup against Manawatu, I don't think anyone scored more than 20 points against them in a game either. When you look at that team, it's stacked with Super Rugby talent. Like Jeff said, when you have Super Rugby players at this level, you can see a difference between them and the top club players in the side, and that's who makes the massive guys like Levi Amua, players like that, Finlay Christie, just again, chip on his shoulder, up against Falau Whakatava this weekend, which will be a nice battle there. Hawke's Bay, they had a bit of a scare, obviously, against Manawatu, but that was their storm week, and you get that feeling that they had all eyes on Tasman. And quite often it's so hard to win those games when half of your mind is looking elsewhere, and that's fair enough too. So, yeah, I like Tasman to get the win in this one, but I don't think Hawke's Bay will roll over at all. I expect this one to go right down to the wire. I think it's going to be within 7 points either way. I just think Tasman at the moment, they look to have that other level in them, and they have so much X factor and strike all across the paddock. I back them to get the job done. But this is going to be a heck of a game, and as a neutral fan, it's the one I've circled this weekend to really look forward to.
Jeff, this has all the makings of a classic Ranfurly Shield challenge. We've got a couple of nines there who've worn the black jersey before. Can Hawke's Bay continue on their roll?
Yeah, they can. Look, like I say, I've been really impressed with a number of aspects of their game. But I think there's a couple of things. Sometimes when when a player loses, a team wins, and that's what's happened for Tasman. When you get someone like Finlay Christie come back into your environment with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, determined to prove that he should be back at the highest level. I know he's also been carrying a bit of a niggle, a groin niggle for a few years, which has sort of stopped to some of his explosive work. But you watch him; he's such a smart player. And I don't think you underestimate the 3 years of Super Rugby that William Havili's had for Moana Pacifica. I think that's changed him into a well-rounded, more complete player, exactly what they need. And then there's some of these other guys, your Levi Amuas and Timothy Tavanawai, they're really impactful NPC players. Tasman's been a really strong, and I've been impressed with the way that they try and play. They've got a balance to the way that they play. So I think for Hawke's Bay, this, like I said, it's a really critical moment for them. Whakatava's been really good this year. Got better as the Super Rugby campaign went on. This is one of those games that's in the balance, for me. And sometimes it's just really whether you step up to the mark. For Tasman, the quality of their season. I mean, I'm sort of leaning that way. Strange, Hicks up front. You've got some experience in McDonald. There are some organisations that are just at the moment are really on top of their game. Funnily enough, the ones that are pushing for the NPC to continue in its current form for now into the end of time, which is Hawke's Bay and Tasman, those guys, Wellington, they're all determined that this is the future. But they're clearly investing in their programs. And it's good to see local coaches as well. Tasman got a local coach, Gary Cornelius, I think it is, who's sort of just slowly but surely coached in the ranks, and he obviously knows the players and the group. And yeah, I mean, they've done a really good job there, since they came into the competition, and they've been a consistent performer. This would do a lot for them if they could pick up the Ranfurly Shield.
Rightio, let's move it along and let's have a look at the Battle of the Bridge, Searle, Auckland, North Harbour. Bookies have Auckland as $1.40 favourite, North Harbour $2.80. Make a case for your boys.
Well, I think it all comes down to the battle of the forward packs. I think Harbour have shown their backline. The talent they have out there is impressive. Kay Banks, Sophie Maka, Sean Stevenson, Moses Leo. They've got so much talent in there. Bryn Hall, Tane Edmund have both been really impressive. They're probably one of the best 9-10 duos going around. It's the kind of the platform that the forwards can set, though. I think they've had a big variance as well from when their bench comes on against their starting side. Auckland with a chip on their shoulder, obviously. But for me, Auckland, the thing I don't get is you watch them in two separate games and they look completely contrasting. It's almost like they don't have an identity, a way that they want to play. So it's really hard to trust them at the moment. So I'm hoping anyway that Harbour can go into Eden Park and get the job done. I'll back them in. It's going to be really tight though. And there's going to be a lot of feeling in this one. The two teams, all the players know each other really well and they clearly don't like each other as franchises either. I'm hoping that little brother can get one over big brother, and no doubt they'll be playing on being the underdogs and no one giving them a shot, even though they're higher than them on the ladder. But get up, Harbour. I'll be there. Hopefully they can pull it off.
Well, there's one of the 750 that'll be at Eden Park this weekend. Jeff, to be fair to Auckland, they've had the toughest start to the NPC. They've had to play Wellington, Otago, Canterbury, and Waikato. So, look, although you wouldn't have thought they'd go 0-4 over that span, it was a tough start.
Toughish, but not without opportunity. I don't think it's been that was incredible. I mean, if you looked at it on form and you looked at it on players and man for man, I'm sorry, but this is a team that's got. I mean, it's a Super Rugby forward pack. I mean, this and I think, and this is where it'll come back to. This is a different competition to Super Rugby, right? This is a different way that you have to play. And people go, well, rugby's rugby. Well, it's not. The way the Blues played has sort of come across and meant that they didn't use the ball a lot, the Blues. We know that for a fact. Everyone knows that. They'll admit themselves. They went through teams, and I think they're out of juice. And what they've got now is they've got not a lot of experience in their decision makers. Zahn Sullivan's a massive part of that. I mean, I actually preferred when they had Tito Harris at fullback. Yeah. Like, he's a really creative young player. You know, like if Seven's exponent's got good footwork, acceleration, could create for the outsides. Wong's a good footballer. I think for me they've got to look a little bit further. Losing Funaki, I think, was massive. For them losing their halfback. So I think there's a little bit of uncertainty there. But there's just too much in this group. And if you're talking about being one up front, then the Auckland should win the battle up front. I mean, they should. I mean, there's no excuse for that team not to win the game up front and put enough pressure on not just the breakdown at the set piece. If you were to, I mean, this is a group. It hasn't got Patrick Tuipulotu in it, but pretty much everyone else played through Super Rugby and was dominant. So I expect them to go out there and put on a clinic up front. And if they don't, you've got to ask some questions. And that clinic should lead to creating opportunities to score some points. But they haven't been good enough. And so now North Harbour's opportunity is, I hope it's a nice day. That'll give North Harbour a better opportunity, to throw it around a little bit. Don't get in the confrontation. But, the season's on the line for Auckland. And like I said earlier on, I expect them to respond and look like a team that is a dominant force.
Right, Searle, you got a hunch for us this week?
Oh, I think the two underdogs get up in the All Blacks and in Harbour. And so I'm backing that. I think the All Blacks will get up this week. I just have that feeling that they'll be stinging after costing themselves last week. A lot of players will be better for the experience. I don't expect this team to make the same mistake twice. And I think our bench in particular is going to come in with a real point to prove. Fueled by the haka and the apologies that we've seen over the last few days. I just think there's so much motivation for this team. And sometimes that doesn't matter because the opposition's just that good. And like Jeff said, they probably didn't play as well as they would have liked to as well. But yeah, I can't see the All Blacks losing twice. Surely not. So they get the job done. And then Harbour get it as well. And chuck Tasman in there to win the Shield too. It's going to be plenty on this weekend.
Jeff, you got a hunch for us this week?
Well, I've just gone way left field, to be honest with you. We're talking, look, the Wellington Lions have been really good this year. Really, really good, playing outstanding footy. Undefeated, right? They're in good form. NFL's season's about to kick off. The Detroit Lions.
Super Bowl champs.
I'm not prepared to go. I'm prepared to go NFC Championship. Just the NFC champions at $6.50. I thought it's great value. I just looked at it and said, you know what? They were so close last year. They were right there, one or two plays. So I've got the Lions here in who will they go undefeated? No. I think they're going to go deep. I've got the Detroit Lions to be the NFC champions in 2014. There you go. I've just got 224. Got a hunch that it's going to go there. Detroit Lions. Get on them.
I love that. I love that call. They got the best roster, most well-rounded in the competition, best coach as well. They got a great culture. I've got them beating the Chiefs.
So with your betting record to date, that's not a great... But anyway, okay. Well, at the moment you got excited, I was like, oh, dear. Okay.
I'm a Browns fan, so I'm trying some reverse jinx here. Yeah, ouch, all right. It's been... My whole life has been a misery, but hey, only March.
Lions, who have they got? Jared Goff, Jameer Gibbs? Where are the second favourites in the NFC behind the San Francisco 49ers. So Detroit Lions currently $6.50 to win the NFC.
Playing the long game.
Yeah. I was watching TikTok the other day.
Oh, Paulie, stop there, mate. I was watching TikTok. That right there is the sentence.
9:30 a.m. in the morning, or is that in the office? Or
that's on the bus on my way to work. So watching a bit of TikTok and a video of a baby elephant that came on, and he was slipping all over the place. And I think because the Auckland mascot is an elephant, they'll be slipping all over the place this weekend. So I'm with Searle. I think Harbour are the way to go. I'm happy to take them for 6.5.
Auckland are winning. Auckland are winning.
Is it an elephant?
Is it not an elephant?
I don't know. I saw a potato there the other day.
There was a seagull. There was a seagull not long ago either, and I see the Blues are changing their mascot too. I think this Auckland Rugby's just all sorts of confused at the moment.
There was a potato.
There was a potato there, yeah.
I was working on the game, going, "What's the potato doing?" I thought that was growers. That was counting.
Yeah. Didn't he hand the ball over pre-kickoff? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The club's emblem is the flying elephant, which was agreed upon of the competition to find a mascot.
Isn't that a pub? Isn't that a pub?
Yeah, or elephant wrestler in Takapuna's is one of the greats too. But we don't have elephants in Auckland. What do we? You go to the zoo. You go to the zoo. But like an elephant, what a way to represent your region.
I scroll down the page and I see a picture of a potato. So I don't know what's going on. Let's get to some betting. I'm going to
hold on. So what's the hunch?
Yeah, I don't know.
What's that got to do with anything?
Well, the elephant was sliding all over the place. So I think Auckland will be sliding all over the place this weekend and trip over against Harbour in the Battle of the Bridge. So, I'm with Harbour, unfortunately for you, Searle.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look at a wee bit of punting. And if we look back to last week, Searle, you took one bet. You had Tasman to win, Taranaki to win, Northland to win, and Harbour to win. No good there.
Yep.
Unfortunately. And Pity had Northland to win, Harbour to win, Taranaki 1-12, Waikato 1-12, Tasman to win, Wellington to win, Hawke's Bay to win, Waikato to win. Funnily enough, that didn't strike. And I had All Blacks to lead at halftime, South Africa to win. That was at $6.50. And I had Waikato to win in a double with Taranaki to win. Both my bets got up. I'm now just a tick under $1,000 up for the season. Searle, you're down 165.60, and that's even with Goldie's little donation to you. Yes, you're down 165 for the season. And Pity, even with that loss last week, and is still up $700 for the season. Isn't he? So where are we going to go? You've got to keep that rolling, Jeff, for Pity. So where are you going this weekend? We'll start with you, Jeff.
Pure and simple. I've got the All Blacks 1-12 at $3.60. I've just got one bet, $100 on the nose. I think for me, we'll make some better decisions. We'll be better at the end of the game. Selection will be pretty consistent. Look, they'll be bitterly disappointed. I think the Springboks, they might just relax just a little bit, just enough for us to maybe get a bigger buffer, or they might, and they're not afraid of this, they might make some selection changes as well. You know, they might just give some guys an opportunity. They might look at a few things. You know, they relied heavily on that bench to come on. So I like our chances. So I've kept it really simple. I sort of looked around a little bit, but I thought to me that $360 for the All Blacks to win 1-12 in South Africa, I think that's a great bet. I really do.
Funnily enough, as soon as that market opened, we had $1,000 bet on the All Blacks to win by 1-12. I think it was at $380 at the time. They've been crunched in since then. I think they were around $2.70 head to head when the bookies opened that second test. Now into $2.50. The All Blacks, the South Africans have drifted out to $1.50. Searle, your $100, where's it going?
Yeah, I've got $50 on the All Blacks 1-12 as well. Love that bet. And then I've got an NPC multi. This is one that's going to get me back into the green. $50 on that. I've got Waikato to beat Northland tonight. Harbour plus 11.5 on an alternative start. Otago to beat Canterbury. And Tasman to take the Shield, paying $7.94.
Holy moly. Nice one.
Cheers, mate. Doesn't mean it's going to win. Doesn't mean it's going to... In fact, that reaction gives me zero confidence. Holy moly, nice one. Okay.
That's definitely a T-shirt right there. I mean, I don't care what anyone says.
I'll stay away from the All Blacks this weekend. I'm going to head across to Argentina, and I know the Wallabies only just got up over Argentina in that first test, but I saw enough there to suggest they continue on their winning ways, and they're still out at $2.60 to win again. And I'm happy to take that. I'm just going to put the whole $100 on Australia to win at $2.60. I can see them starting to turn the corner under Schmidt. So, yeah, and they'll have a few players coming back in the next few weeks as well. They're bubbling away nicely, and we're probably going to be meeting them at the wrong time. Hopefully, we'll be meeting them coming off the back of a win against the South Africans. Promotions-wise this weekend, we're going to have a 3 or more league same-game multi-bonus cashback on the All Blacks South Africa second test. Of course, we've still got the Oval Ball Mega Multi going on as well. And if you like Jeff and you like the NFL, we've got the American Sport Mega Multi as well. So you can multi up as many of those NFL games as you like. And you might just qualify for a bit of bonus cash. So, yeah, I always love this part of the year because there's plenty of rugby on and the NFL season starts as well, which means that Monday is always a great time to have the tell on. And the old red zone, just sensational. So, this weekend, Searle, what are you up to?
Yeah, just going to get stuck into the sport. Had a nice wholesome weekend last weekend, and I'm looking to replicate that again. So, yeah, just sport galore, really. Just rugby, NRL. Unfortunately, the Warriors are done, but then we get to replace that gap with the NFL. So, looking forward to it.
Jeff, what are you?
What have I got on this week? I think I've got Auckland North Harbour, and then I get up in the middle of the night again. I've got Auckland North Harbour, and then I get up at about 1 o'clock, and I'll head into studio, and then we'll drink a Red Bull, I'd say, and commentate, which will be a really important test match for both of those sides, but particularly for the All Blacks, because if we were to talk about the fact that had lost 3 test matches at this point of the season, if we lose on the weekend, that's something I don't think we would have anticipated or hoped for. So. This is a big weekend, and there's bound to be kids have got some basketball on. There's always something going on in our household, so it'll be good. Good weekend.
Excellent. Yep, plenty of rugby, plenty of NFL as well, and of course it's the first domestic thoroughbred Group 1 of the season up there at Hastings with the Tarzino. Current favourite in that futures market, Crescetti at $2.20. Of course, connections have indicated that if it's an off track, they won't be running. But although there's a bit of rain forecast over the next couple of days, it looks like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's going to be plenty of sunshine.
I read today that they awarded the track last night.
Yeah, I think they're fairly confident that it's going to be enough sunshine and a bit of wind. Yeah. And the lead up to Saturday, that it'll be in that sort of dead zone, possibly a good track come Tarzino time. So, yeah, can't wait for that, the first Group 1. All righty. Thanks to Jeff for once again stepping in and helping out. We look forward to having him back again soon. Hopefully he can boost Pitty's balance up.
That's not what you said at the start of the show,
yeah,
Paulie.
I know. The barrel. I'm just the bottom of the barrel.
I was
how big's the barrel?
Meaning more like a gun barrel.
Are we talking 25 litre? We talking, is a container? What are we talking here? Is a silo? Is that what I'm at the bottom of the silo? Is that where I'm operating from?
What I failed to mention is the last time you were on the show, Searle came on the next week and said that he had actually told you what bets to put on for him.
Hey, Paulie!
He took credit for those.
Mate, you've had a shocker. You're on TikTok now. You're snitching on your mates. This is no good, mate.
Yeah, no surprises here. Well, it's all above board. So, yeah, thanks to Goldie. Thanks to Searle. Once again, hopefully Searle will be back next week. It sounds like I've upset him a wee bit. And thanks to you guys for listening. Hopefully we come back and talk about a great All Black victory in Cape Town next week. And also possibly the Shield moving down south to Tasman just for Wellington to pick it up a week later. Anyway, thanks for everyone. We'll be back again next week on the Pick and Go.